Dear students, I Vijeta Lal, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, Patna Women's College. Today in this video lecture, we will talk about what is Pigouvian tax and what are the factors that determine an optimal Pigouvian tax. We will also come to know what are the issues in implementation of this Pigouvian taxes. In order to understand what is Pigouvian tax, we need to understand what is the purpose of this tax. Generally, taxes are implemented for collecting revenue to the state, but here the purpose is something different. This tax is imposed on those economic activities or producing firms and industries which create externalities which are generally negative. These negative externalities cause a negative impact on the third party or on the environment that hampers or affect the efficiency of the market, where the market are in a condition of imperfect conditions and where there is existence of public goods. In order to internalize these externalities or harm to the third party and the environment, the state imposes a tax which is a Pigouvian tax. We can look into some examples to it. These are the carbon tax, the gas tax, the noise tax, and certain cess. The noise tax is implemented in France on aircraft engine. In India, we have coal cess, we have clean environment cess. And in order to understand what is the optimal level of Pigouvian tax, we will need to understand what is the conditions or the determinant that C. Arthur Pigou has presented. According to him, when the private cost and the social cost equalize, it is a condition of an optimal Pigouvian tax. But how can we find out this very amount of tax? For understanding this, it is important to understand the monetary value of a damage so that it doesn't hamper the efficiency or the willingness of the producer to produce, because in some cases there is a double penalizing of tax which may lead to the impact on their willingness to invest or in willingness to produce. That is why the optimal Pigouvian tax has to be determined. Generally, any exposure or emission of pollutant in the environment lead to concentration or exposure. This exposure can further lead to a physical damage. This physical damage can be turned into a monetary value. For example, if any industry is causing a lung disease to people or the resident around, then the monetary value of the health treatment or the medical treatment can be the amount of tax or can be the amount of monetary value that can be charged on that very particular production unit. So this is how we can find out the optimal amount of tax bill to be incurred on the producer. Now, as we know, when taxes are imposed, this production unit leads to a shift in the supply curve, and that is why the prices hike and consumption might fall, which is not a good sign for an economy. That is why figuring out an optimal Pigouvian tax or optimal tax bill is crucial. Now we can understand that there is a known concept which has been presented by some economists, that the environment has a self-assimilating capacity to absorb the pollutions that is being produced by human activities. So this very amount of assimilating capacity is assumed to be E1. So if we reduce or subtract this very capacity, that is E1, in the total tax bill, we can get the optimal amount of tax. So in order to figure out the attainable or the feasible tax bill that can be imposed on the producer, we need to find out the even amount of environmental assimilation capacity which can be deducted to get an optimal condition of Pigouvian taxes. This is the basic concept and introduction to Pigouvian tax. We can have a look on the further graphical presentation and equations in the next lecture. For meanwhile, we can just understand three key points, and the crux of this explanation is that Pigouvian taxes is a way of internalizing the externalities. An optimal Pigouvian tax can be understood when the monetary value of the damage is considered or figured out. We can also come to know that subtracting even amount of environmental damage will lead to an optimal Pigouvian tax. Thank you.